We wrote this article about instructional complexity in part because we were motivated to make it more clear to the general public how difficult a question improving education really is. So the idea to get beyond thinking about teaching as like there's two different ways to do it was a key motivation for this exploration.
What we do here is lay out sort of the number of different options teachers have available to them at any given point. And then we try to make recommendations for ways that we as scientists can improve the research that we're doing so that it can be more relevant to education.
One of many steps needed to really nail down what's necessary to really improve and expand our knowledge of how students learn and how to best teach them.
If you start with, say, one of these dimensions, like the spacing of practice, you can say, well, there's very narrow spacing like cramming, or there's wide spacing that's often recommended, and then there's something in between, so 3 out. Then take another one, like studying examples versus practicing, or a 50-50 mix. Well, that's 3 more combinations, and combined with the other, you're up to 9. Okay? And we identified in this paper 30-some dimensions like these, right? So that's a lot of those to list out. So when we combine all of these dimensions and these different levels or dosages of a kind of instruction, the space is enormous. One size doesn't fit all. You need to know what you're trying to do to pick the right instructional option. In our paper, we make 5 recommendations for dealing with instructional complexity. The first one is to say that what might appear from our analysis to maybe be the obvious, straightforward thing, try out all of these options and see what works best, it's just impossible. The space of possibilities is way too big. We need to advance in a more deeply theoretical way, and what we recommend is that we build on theory that suggests that different forms of instruction meet different functional needs. They help us learn different kinds of knowledge in different ways. So the simple form of that is there are 3 broad kinds of learning functions. Learning to remember, there's learning to induce or generalize, and there's learning to make sense of things. So memory, induction, and sense making. And we align in the paper the 30 different dimensions that we identified with those 3 functions and suggest that we need to explore sub parts of this huge space with respect to those functions. That raises a question then, which is in the second recommendation, about whether an optimal choice to achieve one function, like memory, might be suboptimal for achieving another function, like induction. So we need studies that explore that possibility. A third recommendation is that we take advantage of what we're seeing today with educational technologies becoming much more pervasive in education, and use that as a great opportunity to explore this space by trying, in cases where we're uncertain about what the best form of instruction is, we can build into educational technologies variations on instruction and run experiments that are full scale, out in the world, but still are basic, contribute to the basic research of how people learn. And I think that's a really exciting possibility. One big challenge there is that we don't always have the long-term measures of learning that we really care about. For example, if a child's playing an educational game, like one to learn about making sense of fractions by putting them on a number line, a game that we created. We really want to understand, not are they just getting better at the game, but does it make them better at understanding fractions as it would be measured, say, in the next course they're in, or on a standardized test 5 months from now. That data is in principle available, but it's not so well linked with the educational technology data. So the fourth recommendation is we need to build a national data infrastructure where we can link data being collected at a fine grain, moment by moment basis, with this longer term data like state tests or performance in the next year's class, so we can understand impacts of instruction on robust student learning over time. And then finally, if we want to make this all work in a way that's relevant to current practice and at the same time allows for larger scale, more meaningful studies, we should build better permanent partnerships between schools and researchers, and do that through organizations, for instance, like our NSF-funded LearnLab, Pittsburgh Science of Learning Center, has been one example of that kind of effort. But we see a real both opportunity and almost a necessity to get those partnerships better engaged, so that the practitioners are getting immediate effect on what they need, and at the same time researchers are not exploring what ifs in the lab, but really practically important questions of what makes instruction better.
A recommendation for more interdisciplinary work where we get cognitive scientists as well as domain specialist education researchers all working on the same projects can really make a big difference if we're all going at the same question together and really thinking about what matters.
Carnegie Mellon is the perfect place for this kind of research to have occurred and for it to be a basis for further research. So we've really become an educational research powerhouse by building on the strengths of all of our departments.